to a new episode of Gorilla Cast. Today I'm talking to Tomas Forsbäck, founder and CEO of ReadPeak. Welcome to the studio, Tomas.
Super nice to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So, Tomas, tell us a little bit about yourself and ReadPeak.
Thanks. So I founded a company roughly 10, soon 11 years ago, actually. No entrepreneurial background, so and no tech background, really no business background, and not much of media background. So it was back then what I call jump into the deep end of the pool, trying to learn to swim while you try not to drown. So it was a heavy start, but I've been doing this for 10, 11 years. Besides that, living in Helsinki, 2 kids, 1 wife, no dogs. That's pretty much me.
All right, thanks, Tomas. And what about ReadPeak? What does ReadPeak do?
So ReadPeak is a Adtech platform with a quite niche format. So we operate with something called native advertising, and that format could be described as when you wake up in the morning, you go to your favorite news app, you check the news. So you never are thinking, what are the ads of today? You're thinking, what is the content of today? You are there to consume content. So it has become a major thing how brands can become part of the content experience rather than the ad experience. So what our platform is doing, that you can scale out your content-driven ads on hundreds or thousands of different news pages, outlets, publications, and they would appear with a picture, a headline, a teaser, clearly marked as sponsored and who is the brand behind it, but still following the look and feel of that specific news site. And we started off 2014, and now we are operating in 8 markets, soon 9 markets. We have over 3,000 different brands using our platform, and I think that we have tens and tens of thousands of campaigns done through the platform already.
Sounds great. Thanks, Tomas. I know you've worked with Gorilla Capital in the past as well. So we oftentimes talk about the startup journey as part of this J curve. So how has it been with ReadPeak since 2014? What was the original vision, and how have you evolved over the last 10 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that when we started off, we had a quite clear, or I had a quite clear idea what it was all about. And I think that, like, to be honest, that core concept or idea have followed us throughout, all the years. Of course, the depth of it and how it have evolved has, become more professional, more leaning into machine learning and all the deep data around that. But the core idea is really the same from where we started. And I think that we kind of made before we even started a company, we made a, really simple test together with one of the biggest publishers in Finland to see that does this actually work. And we could see that from a metrics point of view, it made sense. And from there, we started to build our own tech and started a company. But I think that, the learning curve have been more on, how do we actually make it in a way where we can compete on a global level? Mm-hmm. How do we level up the game? And how do we make out of that format and the concept, world-class service?
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense, and it's nice to hear that kind of the original view has stayed. The methods by which you achieve it have evolved over time. We've talked in previous episodes of Gorilla Cast a lot about the problem solution fit and then the product market fit. So with your company clearly having reached PMF along the road, when and how did you realize that you actually have PMF?
That's a good question. I think that, one of the things we did early on, I mean, like, to be honest, the first few years was really a bumpy ride. I didn't have much background in building a business or building a tech product or in the media space at least. So I think that, early days, we kind of launched it. We started to sell it. We got to a certain point where we had some clients, we had some revenue. But maybe a big shift for us was also that after a year or so, we started to get feedback from some of the clients that could we actually access the platform ourselves, because from originally we built the platform for our own use. So we kind of run the campaigns through our own tech. We actually did even content production, and we did the reporting and so on. And then we started to get feedback if they could get access to the platform themselves. And that's where we raised some small sums of investments. We rebuilt the platform to a self-serve platform and launched that in 2018 or 2017, late 2017. And I think that that's somewhere where we kind of made a decision that we will be purely a tech player. We are not a service provider. We won't produce content. We ditched all that. And we were there to bring a technology to the user that they could buy that advertising themselves. That was definitely a key moment. But with that said, it was still a bumpy ride. I think we hired, 3, 4, 5 sales guy, and they literally didn't get anything sold. And after a year with them, I fired the whole team and almost at once. And we started to lean more into digital user kind of acquisitions, and we made it to work to a certain extent. And we had, of course, a number of investors, and our board was there. Do you have product market fit? And are you ready to scale? And and I think that one of the things that we did back then was also asking a lot of from the clients we had, the customers we had. We did customer service. What feature would you like? How should we improve this? One of the learnings for me was definitely that, I realized that it's great to ask feedback from the client, but they will always give you what they already know. Yeah. So they will say this feature, another platform have this, Meta have this, or some other guys did this. Can you also do this? They will never tell you what doesn't exist. So it's our job and my job to innovate, to create something that doesn't exist and make it relevant for the users. And if you only listen to the clients and, does this fit into them, their current needs, you won't become innovative enough. Yeah. So I have always tried to balance, rather ask myself, how should this work in a perfect world? If we could solve any kind of challenge, how should this work? And then, of course, get the feedback from the clients on that innovation part. Then back to the question of product market fit, I think that, we had some early kind of traction in Finland. But when we actually realized that this is actually something unique, where we are able to even compete on a global level with the biggest Adtech players in the world, was really when we opened Sweden. And personally, I think that even if we would have went a couple of years earlier to Sweden, we would have been super competitive already. So in my opinion, we almost waited a bit too long. And because Finland wasn't the best test market or figuring out the product market fit. So I think that, in Sweden, we really realized that this is super competitive. We are super competitive towards all the global players as well.
Sounds great. There were a number of great points that you raised there. I'll come back to each and every one of those. One of the first ones that I want to get into was, as you said, that if you ask the customers what features they want, they will only tell you what they know today. And I think that's been kind of in business development, one of the chicken and egg things, one of the difficult things to crack along the way. And I also think that it's a delicate touch of trying to talk to the customers in a way that you're not so much focusing on features, but you're focusing on the real underlying needs. And how should things work in order for that to bring value to them. And then, as you said, it's up to you to try and figure out that well, how do we make this happen? What are the features, or what are the combination of features we need in order to make that happen?
And funny enough, I mean, when we had already built kind of for years the product, we met some Adtech gurus in the world, and they were looking at our platform, what we were doing, and they said, you can't build Adtech like that. We're like, why not? If it's faster, it performs better, and it serves the purpose, why not? So in some way, we kind of bend a bit of the rules, but we also managed to create a super fast, lean performance platform with that.
Sounds absolutely great. The second thing that I would like to touch upon on your longer previous answer, you mentioned that kind of your expansion to Sweden was one of the points where you really got the feedback that you needed to understand that now we have PMF at the level that we could compete globally. Tell us a little bit about your expansion to Sweden, and how did you do that, and what were your experiences with that?
Yeah, sure. So I think it was 2019. We had sort of growing business in Finland, not a massive one, but still fairly good. And we decided to start selling to Sweden. And both me and one of my colleagues were Swedish speaking, so it was kind of an easy way to start from here. And this was before the pandemic, so there was an expectation to have face-to-face meetings. So we were booking meetings there for a few days. We were flying over, having our meetings, flying back. Some cases you landed in Arlanda and you saw your email that they had canceled the meeting. That was quite typical as well. But then we had quite a few of those meetings, and after summer 2019, in August, I just realized that if we really want to make this work, someone needs to move there. I went to my wife and asked her, "Are you ready to move?" We had a 3-month-old baby. And she asked me when. I said maybe 2 weeks. and literally we moved maybe in 3 weeks or something. So it was a quite fast process. And we moved there. And I was the first booth on the ground. And I think that was essential, because that was our first market. And the first market is super important to nail. And to understand the dynamics of going into a new market where you have no awareness, you bring something new to the market with a different culture and different business environment, to figure that out from Finland is really hard. So we ended up spending 2 years there. It was not a fast start, but fast enough for us to actually be profitable after our first fiscal year already there. And bit by bit, we got into the market, and some of the biggest buyers and biggest media buying agencies started to adapt our technology. And what we saw was that, they threw us into endless A/B tests against the biggest Adtech players in the world. And we always came out as the winner. So much so that they had a hard time to explain to the clients how the difference can be so big. And that's where we really started to realize that we have solved things in a different way that yield to a different kind of result, and it is super competitive in this format. With that said, then, I remember, we were hiring our country manager in the spring 2020, and we were through the process. We had to make a decision: are we hiring or not? We had found our guy, and the pandemic hit. I remember we were talking with the board, and they were like, it's very risky. It can be a shit show, to go ahead. And then I said, no, we got to do it, because when it's a tough time, that's the best time of taking market shares. That's when you can move fast. When competitors are confused, how are they going to react? If we are a fast mover in that kind of market, we can really gain market share, and we did. And in a few years, we were one of the biggest players in the market. And I spent 2 years there, and based on what we did there, we created what we call a go-to-market playbook that we then have now executed in eight markets in total. And I think that the fact that I was there for myself, building that, see what it requires, what are the steps, that have really helped us moving forward.
No, I think that's truly inspirational. I think that once again, a lot of things that you said are really, really exciting. So number one, you as a CEO opening the first new market, you wanted to be there, the first boots in the ground, and really building the business. I think that's one of the things we talk to founders a lot, is that early on you need to be the one doing the selling, you need to be the one understanding the business. So That's clear. And then just nonchalantly you say that, well, we built it to be a profitable market in 12 months. If there's one problem for a lot of Finnish early stage companies, it's going into the international markets, making it there, but you made it profitable in 12 months. So that's really exciting stuff. You mentioned your go-to-market playbook. I think that's been one of the other things when we look at your business that has been really inspirational in terms of not just thinking about which markets we could go to, but really being clear on what you want to achieve in the new markets. So what's the framework for your go-to-market playbook, and how do you enter new markets?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, I mean, like what we have done is that we have also scaled from 1 market, Finland, to 8, soon 9, and next year we add 4 more markets, only with cash flow. So without any external capital, which also requires kind of a twist in the go-to-market plan, to be honest. So for us, it has always been about, how can we do a thorough job moving into a new market, built on a super strong based assumption of how the market works. You can't know everything, but kind of balancing, maximum growth and upside with limiting the risk. You always have to take massive risk, but it have to be very calculated risk, especially if you're just working on your cash flow, with your cash flow. So what we did was that I moved back after two years in Sweden, and I guess I got bored after 2 weeks, and I said, let's open Denmark and Norway, and then needed some action. But we had a quite clear blueprint on how we wanted to do that, and there's actually split up to I think 50 or 60 different steps, but in a nutshell, what we do is that we do a market research, gather as much data as we can on our industry, of course, on competitors, on pricing, but we go also into, living index and salaries and, all kind of demographic information that we can gather around that market. And also to have an understanding, if we're hiring, what are the costs of hiring, what is the social security cost and insurance policies in that market, etc. And then we, of course, create a budget for that market quite early on. But the first things we do after market research is really start to check in on what we call the supply. So that is the publishers we work in each market. How much supply can we get programmatically? How fast can we build that up? And we start building that up. We use also some competitors' platforms to benchmark, how well are they performing in that market. We start connecting those publishers to our platform. We run early tests, and everything is happening in quite fast pace. In a few months, we have already our early understanding of that. And then one of the key things in that process, building up both, testing demand and supply and doing our research and budgets, is that we try to book at least 5, 6, 7 feedback calls. So literally we contact potential clients. We set up online meetings or even meet them in person. And what we tell them is not that we are going to sell to you, but we say that we are planning to potentially move into this market. We want your unfiltered feedback about what if we would bring in this product to the market. And sometimes we even have used, some bookers to get the job done if we haven't managed to do it ourselves. And those meetings are super important because there we can ask all the questions we want. We ask, what platforms are you using today? How big is this format? What are clients saying about this format? What is the price level they are expecting? And then we show some slides. We do our demo of the platform. Then we ask, what do you think? If we would move in with this platform, would this be relevant for you guys? And we know that if 9 out of 10 say, this is actually interesting, we would like to test it, we're in a good spot. And if 9 out of 10 say, sorry, I don't see any potential in this, then we're in a bad spot. And that feedback means that we have a quite solid understanding on both supply, demand, and the economics of moving into that market. And so far, we haven't really spent any money. We have spent some time. But we have a strong position to understand is this going to work. And the next thing we do is what we call headquarters sales. So then we make a decision, let's move into the market. we start with a recruitment plan, and simultaneously we start to do what we call cross-market sales and headquarters sales. So headquarters starts to do some booking more meetings, try to convert those into actual clients, start test campaign spending, but then we inform the other markets, not, hey, now we have opened up the Belgian market, so now you can start buying there. So in best case scenario, we have already ramped up, 10, 20, 40,000 euros of revenue before we have even hired the first person. So he kind of can jump on a rolling train. And then we put a lot of effort into the hiring, because we know that when we hire the first person in the market, that is crucial. We need to get it right. So we spend a lot of time finding the right person. We do it ourselves. And one of the reasons why we mainly do the recruitment ourselves is that you learn a lot through the recruitment process. Because when someone is in a interview, they are not representing their employee, and they are talking for themselves. So they will disclose a lot of information about the industry, the market, the players, the dynamics in an interview. So that's also for us a learning curve about the market. So, and then obviously when we then hire the first person, we do a proper onboarding. We are there to support, and then they will of course be part of building the local, strategy and sales and so on. And there are key things that we are looking for in every new first hire. And then there's all the practicalities. So we are establishing a subsidiary there, all the financing and bookkeeping and all those practical things, of course, as well.
Very good. It's so much fun, Tomas. Every time I ask you a question, in addition to answering the question, you bring up a lot of additional great points. And one of the things that you mentioned in the beginning of your previous answer, which I think is super impressive, once again, is that you have been revenue funding your growth. So you're not raising additional capital to invest into new markets. And I think, as you mentioned, when you're spending your own money, you're being a lot stricter about where do you put the money and how do you do that. What led you to choose that strategy over just getting additional funding?
Yeah, I mean, great question. So I think that there's a bit of background to this one. So we raised a few small rounds of capital. I think it was less than 700K. And still today we haven't raised more than that. Plus, of course, some Business Finland governmental funding and loans. But with that said, I think that we were in a place back in 2018 where we really thought that we will, raise some VC money. And we were fully focused on that track, and we actually hired or got into the team some people who had extensive experience of that, and we tried to align all the KPIs and the presentations, and we met with so many VCs. And there's a bit of background in Finland to that, because simultaneously, a few years earlier, a lot of investors had invested to another Adtech company from Finland, and that didn't go too well. So they were really burned on Adtech, and most of them said no Adtech for us, So it was a closed door. And for 1 year we tried to do that, and then in the end of the year I was like, this is not flying. So I kind of swapped the whole board. Because I thought that I need a board that can really support us in a different kind of strategy. And I got in a guy who have still in the board, Rubinstein, and he brought in and taught me a lot of, he's a serial entrepreneur, and he is like, he builds profitable businesses. Of course, he knows how to raise capital and that part as well. But his background kind of on how to align a business to be profitable, how do you drive a profitable business, how do you budget for it, how do you kind of control it. I think that was a massive learning curve for me and helpful. And together with him, we kind of turned the company profitable in 6 months. And then we could, build that strategy on how to do that. So in one way, it was kind of, the reality is what that we didn't get any VC funding at that moment. Funny enough, a few years in, we were growing with cash flow. There were like so many private equities knocking our door, wanting to invest. It's like, almost every second week there was someone approaching us, and of course everybody wants to invest when you don't need the money.
No, that's good to hear. But once again, I said, if you kind of look at the positives and negatives of having built with your own revenue. What would you say are the main positive things about your approach?
So first of all, I'm not against raising capital. We might do it still in the future. So
absolutely. Understand that.
It's not either or. But with that said, I think there's a few good things with building with cash flow. Number one, you kind of in control of your destiny. You can do a lot of the calls yourself. And you can do it in your own pace. The other thing is that it impacts definitely the culture of the company because you need to be profitable or you die. So it's not a matter of nice to have, but it's actually survival. So that of course makes it kind of creates also a culture where everybody understands how important the gross margin is, how important the bottom line is, how important every line of the budget is. And we are very transparent in the company about the finance every month. So that's one thing. But also the other thing is that you really don't afford to have, lazy people lying around not getting the job done. So you have to be very clear on who you are hiring, and you only hire people who really contributes to where we are going. And you build a culture where everybody's aligned around, this big goal of building this company. And I think that culture really kind of impacted us also in our growth, different growth stages.
You mentioned culture, and I've been hearing you give speeches before, and you're kind of used words like culture is caught, not taught, and you talk a lot about this detox and retox approach that you guys have taken. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I love culture. I think culture is a big driver and force when it's done right. I think that every company have a culture. It's either designed or it's default, and if you design it, you can control it and use it to your benefit. And I think that one of the risky things is if you build a company without designing a culture, it will always be a mix of people's background coming into the company from different corporates or different things, and it will be a cocktail of whatever that is. And I think that in the early stage, probably it's not that important to focus on what is our culture and do a strategical workshop around it. I don't think that. But at some stage, when you start growing and adding people, culture should be a tool for you to lead your company. And I think it's a super important one. And we have so many people saying that, this is the best company culture they ever have been working in. And even people who are leaving the company, even people that we have fired, are texting and saying, I have to say this was still the best company culture I've been in. So, but I think that there's a few things maybe to mention. So one is the thing that you said, that I tend to say that culture have to be caught, not taught. And I'm a big believer in that culture works in a way where you won't adapt to the culture because I share a book and say I read the book and learn our culture. You do it by spending time with me, with us talking through things, and me showing you how we are doing things here and why we're not doing certain things, but we are doing it this way. So I think that's also the reason why we spend a lot of time together. We are flying to the different markets, and I have always said to my colleagues, flying into Amsterdam or Berlin or wherever, the most important time of the day is not all the workshop and the strategy that we of course are doing. It's the evening. We go for dinner, we spend time, we talk about life, we talk about how we do things, and whatever. That is as important as all the other pieces, because that's where we transfer who we are and our values as a company. And that's also why we fly the whole company several times a year to Helsinki, or a Christmas dinner across Europe, or we have a summer trip every year. And of course, we invest a lot of money into that, but it's definitely worth it because that's where we build the culture. The other thing that you mentioned was this, what we call the detox and retox. So I think that one of the things is that when you want to hire really professional people with a solid background, they always have a super strong background from super big, strong companies. And every one of us have a background, and we are kind of, painted with a certain color. And what I tend to do is identify early on when we get those professional, super great people in. They will eventually become contributors to who we are and our culture, and we want them to contribute. But one of the things is that we also have to do what I call a detox. So, you have to kind of get out their thinking on how things are done in some other company and get them to be detoxed with how we think things are done in this company. And, culture comes down to the details. It's not, a big slogan. So, for example, I remember we had two German guys starting a company. We were in Nice on a company trip in France, and they said, "Hey, can we talk to you with me and my colleague about a big client? They have sent us an email, and we just wanted to hear your thoughts on how should we respond to this email." And we sat down, and then the first question was, when did they send the email? And they said it was last Wednesday. I was like, it's 1 week ago. And, me and my colleague, we got almost furious, because we were like, this can never happen in our company. This is not our culture. And, we have a response time of hours or minutes, not days. And, and they were like older than us, and they were more experienced than us, and they were like, what's the big deal? We were like, it's a massive deal, this is important for us. We are a company who have fast responses. It's how we are identified. It's a part of our brand. And they were like, okay. But it comes down to details, how we do things, how we approach our clients, how we communicate, how we are with each other. It's so many things.
Yeah.
But every moment like that is a part of the detox and retox.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear, and I love the way you describe it in terms of culture as not being some stagnant thing that you once create and then it sticks. It's everyday work, making sure that everyone stays aligned and the culture lives and breathes. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, and I comment of that. One of the things that when we started to move to several markets, I really had to think too. So because in one way we had figured out, how do we export technology?
Yeah.
But how do you export culture? Yeah. How do you make sure that the culture is the same in every market? And that was an important piece for us, because we think that we have to be a culture and value-driven company.
Yeah.
And one of the key things is just make sure that you have enough time spend it together with those people.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. So if we start bringing all of this together, there's been a lot of gold nuggets that you've given us throughout the discussion so far. So if you were to kind of summarize your key lessons from your 10 years of scaling your business, what have been some of your toughest challenges, and what are you most proud of in your journey so far?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot, of course. I think that, first of all, I was a single founder. So, which I didn't think of a lot back then.
Yeah.
But that means, of course, that you carry a lot of decision making and tough passes, yourself. But that also made me build a super strong board that always was more like both a board, but also an advisory team for me. But also, I really didn't have any background of building business. So I think that, if I would do something different, I would probably, do the proper educational piece and part. And I know that a lot of people from universities say, I don't know what I learned. For sure, you learn a lot. And I think that, even the fact that you have been part of another startup or scale up before you start your own is super valuable. And I didn't do that. I didn't have that. So that gave us quite kind of a slow start. So, but to be honest, looking back, I think that what I would do if I would start again, I would definitely look more into a global market. I think there was too much talk and too much focus on, do we have product market fit in Finland?
Yeah.
And today I would argue that I would not look too much on that. I would focus more on building something for a global scale from day one. Of course, I have a different, set of tools to do that right now.
Yeah.
But then then I think that, what we can be proud of is that, we have learned a lot every day, every week, and we are very good at utilizing that into our growth path. We are still on midst of our journey. We are big plans ahead. So I'm kind of proud that we have managed to get it this far and build a business that people love to working, and we have clients that loves us, and I think that we have a unique culture and we have a place to play in those big markets as well. And then, of course, there's a lot of challenges ahead. I mean, like right now I'm spending 3 weeks a month in UK. We have a flat there, flying back and forth because it's one of the major and most important markets for us, but it's super hard to crack. And, what you realize is that, even though you have product market fit in some market, doesn't mean that you have it all. And then you have to adjust your go-to-market strategy, and it requires a lot of effort and job to do so. So we're definitely not done, but I think that we are. That's also the thing that keeps me, thrilled that, there's always more to learn.
Yeah, you just raised another major point in your previous answer. So you're still living what you're preaching. So now that you're opening the UK market once again,
100%.
you're there,
100%.
feet on the ground, making sure that it goes right.
That's also, but that's the entrepreneurial life. You have no choice. You want to grow, you want to build a business, you have to put in what it requires, and still balance that with, wife and 2 kids and everything that requires. But the thing is that, we started off in UK in the same way as any other market. After 9 months in, I was looking at it and I said, like, this is a tough market. Most of the Finnish startups go into UK, it doesn't make it. There's so much US-based vendors and companies pushing in, and there's definitely different dynamics. So I remember in October we had been there so many times already, supporting the team there, and I was like, this is too strategical for me to hear everything through a filter, a country manager. Their job is not to figure out our growth strategy. Their job is to make that one market work. But this is more important than that one market. For us, UK have to be a springboard to US or even beyond. So I was like, it's too strategical for the company to fail. So I didn't really see any other option than moving there myself for a while to figure it out. And I think we are making progress.
Oh, sounds great. You mentioned already previously that you're looking to open 4 additional markets in the near term. So what else can you tell us about ReadPeak's plans for this year and beyond?
Yeah, I think that we keep executing new markets. I think that I'm super keen to see us in the next few years open new markets, hit the mark of 25 to 30 new markets, going beyond Europe. I think that there's a massive opportunity in APAC, Australia, Japan, US, North America as well. So we are really kind of working always with our 5-year strategic plan, keep executing that, adjusting along the way and learning. And for us, it's a different phase right now where we are growing as a company. It requires really great people in the headquarters with a super strong strategical skill set, building organization, building structure, also still keeping the startup and scale up vibe. But every new growth path or stage requires new skill set and people and I think that is one of the things that I decided very early on. I will never be afraid of bringing people that are better than me, because that's the only way you can build a dream team.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So when we started GorillaCast, we wanted the podcast to be 2 things. We wanted it to be educational, and we wanted to give the type of content for the founders that they could say that, or they wouldn't actually have to say that I wish I had known this years ago, but they've already gained some insights here. So that's why we have a couple of our final closing questions always. So what do you know today that you wish you had known years ago when you started building ReadPeak?
That's a good question. If I would know what I know today, I would probably never have started. It takes so much work and like effort, but I think that I wish I would have understood better the global market, in our industry. Early on, because as I said earlier, maybe too focused on Finland or the Nordics, but there's a big world with massive opportunity, and the faster you get your head around that, understand how to play the big game and the dynamics there, the faster you can scale there. So in one way, I wish I would have understood better that big picture of our industry early on. That's for sure one thing.
All right. Thanks very much. And then the second question that we have is, what could have helped you to move faster on your learning curve?
Bringing in the right people. I think that's the key. You're not a superhero or a god. You need to find the right people who can help you in different stages, and you have to be honest with yourself. That's when someone have served a purpose for a few years, for example, in the board or anything. If they don't add value to the next stage, then you have to swap them. To be honest,
no.
And it's not to be harsh. It's just to be realistic. You need the people who can help you in the next stage, and I think I have always pushed for bringing in the right people to help us right where we are for the next year or next few years. And without that, you can't really get there, because you are growing, and you are, of course, developing your skill set. And one of the major things in growth is that unless you as a leader can innovate yourself for the next growth stage, you will be the bottleneck for that growth. Mm-hmm. So of course you need to grow rapidly, but you can't grow fast enough without the right people around you.
I fully agree. Thank you very much, Tomas, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and best of luck in your conquest of the world with ReadPeak.
Thank you. Super nice being here.